thing. And there are other instances where you would see like a certain magic effect or something like that. One of my biggest ones, which people don't realize, but is actually something that should be like done a lot more often, is when someone puts out an illusion, a disguise, or something like that. I mean, for the most part, you have to make a check. I mean, if you don't literally look at it to inspect it, you believe it right away. So there shouldn't be this kind of notion that you can easily like just overlook a wizard's like if some wizard like in your party says in the game like I cast minor illusion, like they say the wizard casts this and he tries to bring out like some kind of crazy looking deadly thing in front of you. It's like unless you succeed on the check, you have to believe it. You have to believe it's real. I mean, at the same time, it's like a player going, holy fuck, there's this ball of fire in front of me. I can't put my hand through it because I think it's going to burn me.
Right.
So it's that sense, because that will happen a lot of the times when people throw things in the rolls and people are telling you, this is the spell I'm using, but you guys don't necessarily know how it's working. So you kind of have to believe the lie.
Right.
And that's why
you're really good at that actually during our game. Is something will be going on and Rin wouldn't know what the hell's going on, you know, like doesn't understand it because he's very book smart but not street smart. And that's something I've noticed with how you play your character. You do really, really well in that category with separating the player character knowledge, and it ends up being a fun, more, I almost said funner, more fun. Yeah, it's more fun for everyone else when you play that ignorance because your character is ignorant of it. It just adds another layer to the roleplay onion, I guess.
Yeah, and the other one, of course, which you even know too as a DM, which is the most common one we'll ever come up with players, if someone is lying or needing to kind of throw out like a deceit or something like that, the DM has to say, you know, roll a deception or persuasion, but technically whatever they pick, especially on Roll20, it's right there. And so a lot of the times people have to then, when you get to that stage where an obvious lie or an obvious deceit is placed in front of you, and even though you as the player know it's a lie, again, like, you know, where were you off to? Oh, I was just fishing up some fish. They rolled like a nat 20 on their deception. You're like, yeah, you were out fishing. That's great.
Yeah.
I know nothing else.
Yeah.
Good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah, the easiest, you can catch it real easy when somebody's metagaming, if you're the DM, especially if they do something you know their character wouldn't do. And that's the suckiest thing when you're, you know, when you get really invested in your character and then you're like, God, this is going to kill him, but I have to make this choice because that's what he'd do. You know, your paladin, he's gonna stand up to the dragon. Start rolling up your backup character because for him to run now is so out of character. You know, you're just avoiding a trap or not protecting a friend. You know, doing things out of character because you know it'll save you, but your character wouldn't do it. I think that's one of the more egregious forms of it.
Well, I mean, it definitely ties into what I'm switching my pet peeve around for. I have something else.
Peeves. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
but I switched it over because I wanted to actually bring that same kind of concept over into this conversation, and I have something else to pet peeve on.
Yeah, so let's do top 5. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not jumping into that. I'm taking my pet peeve and moving it over here into this conversation. I have something else like a pet peeve.
Okay.
But yeah, like what Steven was saying is like metagaming in terms of like that's what my character would do. Kind of the other side of the tracks. Like you went down to paladin side of righteousness, and there's a dragon. Like I gotta fucking go. I don't know what else to do. The metagaming side is on more like I think that's actually more of a positive because you're playing your character in terms of like if that's how you made him to be as the righteous paladin and fuck dragons. Well then I guess that's what I gotta go do now. But on the flip side of that, and this is a really gray area in my perspective in terms of like you could really RP it positively. I'll use your paladin as a more positive side of that conversation. That's what my character would do. But there's also the negative side of that's what my character would do on the negative side of the metagaming. You know, with your paladin idea, it's actually more the positive. If there was a positive metagame, I guess, is you're role playing your character. Like that's running away that doesn't make any sense. But on the negative side of like, that's what my character would do is all those negative, like Shaun said, toxicity kind of things where you're doing it to an NPC, you're doing it to another party member, like you're doing it just to be a dick, like because that's what my character would do. Like that's the I think that's like kind of the worst kind of metagaming. Like I can let things slide in terms of like. If I'm DMing and my character, there's someone dying around the corner and they just so happen to run over and help them, like, I don't know, maybe we'll roll for it. But if you're purposely doing something, because that's what my character would do, like there's a fence that you walk and you hopped over to the mega metagaming side of life in terms of that gray area, you jump right over into the black in terms of
the mega meta.
The mega meta. The mega meta mind. I think all that was making sense what I just said.
Okay.
It's just one of those things where it just doesn't. It's not needed. I mean, what part is that fun for anyone? Like I don't understand how anyone would want to do that purposely. Negatively, that's what my character would do is go stab the king in the neck. No, would he though? Like why? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like there's a certain threshold I think of like no, just and I've witnessed that in some of my own personal characters, like really having to not only my knowledge of what I know and things, but also just not jumping full head on heels of like this is what my character would do because so I have to do it. Like there is that fine gray area where you can live comfortably and still have a really fun time and not ruin it for yourself or other people. Yeah, thanks, Kayla.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Go
Kyle.
What more do we need than a yeah?
I think an interesting concept Kyle brought up was thinking of something as positive metagaming, where I think there is some positive forms of metagaming, like over the table talk. If you're helping out a new player, saying, "Hey, this is what your character can do,"
Right.
Your character wouldn't know that, but you as the person, you're just helping them out. That's technically metagaming, but you're also helping them. So long as you're not the person who says, "You're a cleric, you need to heal. That's all you do." That's just being a dick.
Right.
But yeah,
Don't be a
if
dick.
somebody's like,
Yeah.
yeah, if somebody's like, "Oh, I'm a druid, what can I do?" Oh, well, you could cast this spell, or you could turn into a squirrel and get the fuck out of here if that's what you want to do.
That player should never be a druid in the first place, because anyone who asks that question, the answers are too many.
Yes.
I'm a druid, what can I do?
Yeah.
I mean,
You can
I
roll
like
a different
how-
character. Yeah. That's what you can do.
you could not
like how
conjure with the
Steve's
beams.
go-to
That'd be a start.
Oh.
Don't do that.
I like how Steven's go-to character for a druid was a squirrel. That makes me super happy because I played a squirrel character before. So
I love the fact that we had
squirrels are like very hand in hand for me right now. But anyway,
I love the fact that we had Brian the cleric who had an army of squirrels with soap operas.
Yeah, that was really funny.
He really fell into his character
Yeah,
at
that
the
was
end.
great.
I loved it.
No, explain what are your feelings? Yeah, like Dr.
Yeah.
Phil and the
I mean, that was
squirrels.
great because that was like, God, how many? That was like what 8 sessions in where he came up with that. Like,
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
good.
I mean, I don't think he started thinking his character was going to be a person who likes to talk to squirrels to resolve their issues.
Not at all.
Dr. Squirrel Phil.
All right, let's switch over to our top 5. So pet peeves. So we'll go around the table and say our top 1.
Oh, we're just starting. Do you want us to elaborate, or just saying what it is, and then we'll talk more about it?
Yeah, say what it is, and then you elaborate, and then we'll comment on how wrong you are. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm usually very,
think that's
very
a pet
wrong,
peeve?
so I'm actually pretty comfortable in this situation.
good setup, Shaun. Good setup, bud.
All right. Well, I've been talking, so I'll keep talking.
Yeah, you're good.
My biggest pet peeve is the intentional min-maxing of characters. It's super annoying to just watch a person pick, these are where my stats are going, this is the race I'm doing, this is the background I want, all for the sake of maximizing what they can do combat-wise. I'm all for people wanting to make the best character they can, sometimes making a quirky character, is fun if you don't. You don't always have to pick the ideal things. I've done the half-orc monk. That's not ideal for that class, but he was a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm picking half-elf because I'm going warlock, and that +2 is the best for it, and then I can use my skills to get this. And you're less making a character and more trying to win a game.
Okay.
That kind of I think, leads into the one I had for a pet peeve, I think.
I planned it that way.
I think questioning, was that my pet peeve? Or did I have a different one?
Well, before you get into yours, let's kind of let people unpack that a little bit if they want to.
Oh, sure, yes.
I mean, I think there's a time and a place for it. If you're going to run, and again, this actually goes back to something you said earlier, with setting expectations and stuff. I mean, if you're playing like a murder hobo setup where you're just going to go around fight stuff, I mean, what better way to min-max the character?
Right.
Is to go down and you want to just...
That is a good
the
time
whole
to do it.
idea of the campaign is combat. Like, that's just is what it is. But I would agree when it comes to... and this even works all the way back in character creation that we talked about earlier, but it's one of those things where min-maxing is... Again, there's like that gray area of, it's like, you don't want your character to be just bad at what they do, but you still want them, there is that fine line between, if they're amazing, I guess they're amazing, if that's the way the dice roll the stats kind of thing. But I agree where, you kind of want to have that character concept first, and almost one of the last things you do is roll the dice, right? Like, if you really want to make a genuine character, that might be one of the last things that you do after you come up with the race, come up with the class, do the backstory, flesh out a little bit of background, and it's like, okay, I can have everything, and then maybe roll the dice and see, because if you roll the dice first, it's like, well, I was gonna play like you said, like a half elf warlock because of the +2 charisma, but I don't really have that great of a charisma, so maybe I'll just do the barbarian because I could do a strength now. Like, you totally change your character just because the dice rolls. Like, that's a little crazy. So that fits, I think, into that min-max conversation.
And I've definitely min-maxed before when it comes to like one-shots or just small campaigns where I didn't need to put a whole lot of background into it. Like we talked about the Tomb of Horrors. We ran that as a marathon 12-hour session, so I just rolled up a quick fighter.
Yeah.
It was awful. I don't recommend it. But yeah, like I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. I wanted to be a big sword and board heavy hitter fighter, so I went Dragonborn +2 strength, +1 charisma. There we go. That's all I need.
Like with our PvP tournament we're gonna be doing, that's the perfect place to min-max, because we're trying to see who's the best class for a PvP arena. So, which we are going to be having on the channel. But there's a time and place for it. Go ahead, Kayla.
I think that min-maxing really becomes a problem when you let it get in the way of your character. I mean, it kind of depends on like what campaign you're wanting to run. Like Carl said, if you're just running a murder hobo, then the idea is to min-max. But most campaigns is going to sound cheesy. D&D isn't just a game; it's an experience. Like it's not about just winning or losing. It's about being in a world and like finding all these different things out. It's about creating a story, and you're going to be able to create a better story if you don't min-max. Like if you have a character that's just whatever it turns out to be, if you don't like handpick, this class pairs best with this race, it's more fun, I think, to not min-max. And I think that if you make the choice not to min-max, it's less frustrating when you encounter a situation where you don't win. Because if you min-max, you're going into the game thinking, okay, this guy's built to win. He's going to win at everything. He's a winner. And if he loses, I have lost. And this whole thing is just going to waste of time and I'm a failure. Which is not what D&D is about at all.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, especially with that, you said min-maxing and all that. It definitely leads to the whole thing where a person has like this belief that it should be this perfect kind of setup. And if the setup ever fails or has problems, I see people just fall away from that immediately and want to roam the characters. They want to try something else. They think that it's like, oh, I'm not having fun with that, perfect build. Let me try making a second perfect build. And it's the biggest issue, as I like previously mentioned. It's like you're not trying to create a hero. You're trying to create a character. You're trying to create something that's believable and real, and something that can be fun and have an enjoyment to kind of put yourself in their shoes, sort of thing, or something that you can relate to. I mean, like if you have your own personal flaws, or you've known someone who has these flaws, you go like, I wonder what it would be like if they did something. It's a great way to do that, as opposed to kind of thinking you've made the perfect build and then getting disappointed when it doesn't work. Where it's much better to feel so surprised and happy that it's like, oh my god, my little misfit succeeded.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna min max, go for the full cheese build of Halfling, Bountiful Luck, Lucky Feet, Divine Soul Sorcerer for Favored by the Gods, and Divination Wizard for Court. Never fail. You never fail a roll again. You just get to do whatever you want. If you're gonna do it, go whole ham.
Well, and kind of going off of just, I think also you can ride that wave of, if you have like just the unfocused vision of what you want a character to be, you can still kind of min-max your character in terms of like, let's say your concept was, I've just never played a monk before, right? And I want to play one, so it's one of those things where maybe you have like a basic concept. I know before I said, get everything done and then roll your dice, but even if you don't have that, even if you only just have like a baseline of like, I want to play a monk, like I want to be a small monk, like what goes really good with that? Maybe just give yourself a little bit of direction, because you can start to get into the area of, all right, well, what's the best monk to have? Well, tabaxis have all this movement and they can do these things, or moving along the, again, having that conversation. But I think you can still, I mean, with HotA, what was really cool, if I'm not mistaken, I think we rolled dice last, right? I mean, we had like almost everything.
A couple hours of who was your characters before we even did stats.
Right. And it's been a pleasure to play Finley, in terms of, I got so engrossed in thinking about who I wanted to be and what I wanted his character to be. It was totally different than other characters that I had made, in terms of that max gray area of like, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but all right, well, while I'm thinking about it, I'll roll stats in the meantime. Ooh, okay, cool. This will work. And then finishing, it was actually really the first time I had fleshed out the guy, and then stats. And actually, I kind of like it the best, in terms of, if you're really going into the character campaign adventure story, if you dive into who you want to be.
And some like anti-min-max things that we implemented for the character creation was, after you guys even rolled the stats, we went through one character at a time, one skill at a time. Athletics, acrobatics, like every arcana, every single one of them, and we did D6s, D4, D8 modifiers, positive or negative, based on your backstory. And so we like brought up, Finley in acrobatics based on your, are you acrobatic or not? Not based off of your first stat. No. So we gave you a negative modifier. So it further customized it to where your character is going to roll how your character is, instead of what would be best in the situation. So
and that's the first time I've ever done that. I mean, in terms of modifying modifiers, like that was actually something that I didn't even know what he could do, and two, I really enjoyed. And that was, I think, before we even rolled stats, right? I think stats was like the last thing that we did in terms of numbers.
I don't remember.
I think we did it after.
Yeah, I think it was after stats.
Same time, like right around the same
after.
Same time. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But that was really cool to do that.
All right, let's go into Andrew's pet peeve, and then we'll take our last break.
Okay. So I remember now. I remember what it was.
Okay.
It's not that one. It was the pet peeve of that when players make a character that has in its own nature or intent to be conflicting with the party members. So people who would, for instance, make characters that have, like, let's say, initial racism towards certain particular races, and let's say one of those races is in your party. And so right there, you're just like forcing the party to kind of bash heads at the start. Other times is when you will do a lot of intentional or very consistent or deliberate, like, hindering the party. So rogues that might be kleptomaniacs, for instance, they will
stealing from other party members.
Pockets like crazy. Yeah. But it's at the same time, you have to imagine that there's some kind of internal, like, little man that's telling us, like, yes, I know you really want to, but better not do it here. Because most people have that sense of, like, you know, self-preservation of, if I do this, I'm going to kind of screw myself over worse off than I usually do. But maybe if there's a situation where it's really going to test your character's, like, strain to stop and hold their addiction or their behavior, then you can maybe make a roll about it or something. Because if you think, one of the great examples was Critical Role with Not. Steele's like a booger, but literally very minimally will steal from the party members. The only one time is when it was like kind of character developing, when it was the scroll. That's it. That was the only time she was like, I'm going to steal from the party specifically because there's enough of a reason for me to kind of go past the whole, I'm willing to risk hurting my relationship for that one goal, which is great because that's a story, that's a development. But someone who just constantly says, yeah, I'm going to, you know, the party has, like, you know, split the gold between everyone. I'm going to go and steal 50 gold from each person's pocket just because. You know, there's no real rhyme or reason, and it's just more because of one of those things where it's like, I'm a sneaky rogue. Or a bard that says, oh, I'm such a persuasive little fucker that I'm going to make you give it to me because I'm going to flirt with you until you, like, hand over all your worldly possessions.
That kind of goes into the what characters, this is what my character would do, that I had mentioned a little bit before. That's kind of what you're saying with that. A little bit in terms of...
Yeah, but yeah, and it's like, I think it's better for one of those extremer versions. Like, if there's like a really, like, it's hard to pass up kind of moment.
Well, we went over that before you guys made your characters, because we talked about what you guys want as a group, you know, what are the rules for the group. What are some things you guys remember me saying to you guys about, like, morality for doing things against party members?
I don't remember this thing.
Yeah, you weren't
there. Yeah. What was the question? I'm sorry, I was typing.
No, it's okay. So with what AJ was talking about doing things to fellow party members, what was some things that I went over with you guys about my expectations for you guys against other party members? You guys remember?
If I'm not mistaken, it was a definite no in terms of no. Like, don't fucking do that. Like, if it leads to it has to have a really good reason behind it. Like, the example AJ gave with the scroll was a thematic storyline thing, not a just because. So I think that actually rolled over into PvP with other players. Like, it has to be a really fucking explained reason for, because that's one, it's honest. I mean, it's just not progressing story forward in terms of, like, a just because doesn't do anything. But if I'm not mistaken, it's like a 99% no, and that 1% better have a really good fucking reason for it.
Because we had two instances of where a command was given to a player in the party, and which made sense to the characters at the time, but then afterward during the debrief, when it was players talking to other players about how it went, the player wasn't okay with that. It took away his fun because he specifically didn't want to do something because his character didn't want to, and then they forced him to. You know, it was a fixable moment, but yeah, doing other things against other party members can definitely take the fun out of the game for other people.
Which, I mean...
Yeah, go ahead, you're good.
I am all for party conflict because, like, it makes the game fun, and, like, it really brings out a lot of good, like, character interaction and character development and, like, bonding as a group. But at the same time, you shouldn't be intentionally seeking out ways to disrupt the party. Like, if it comes up, it comes up because people are going to clash. But then as a party, you have to work together to kind of be like, okay, how do we fix this so that we can keep working together because we work well as a unit? It's just our personalities clash. But you shouldn't be, like, looking out ways like, oh, I know that this character is super attached to this necklace, so I'm going to steal it from them and then sell it. Just because I'm a rogue and I like money and I think it looks pricey. Like, that's not a good enough reason. Like, you have to think about it in the sense that if you were a person actually traveling with these people, you would have to maintain some type of positive relationship. Like, you couldn't just go around fucking all of them over and expect nothing bad to happen to you in return.
Right. And when we were talking about alignment at the very beginning too, was this is intended for you guys to be the good guys, you know, but I am okay with if you guys want to be an evil character, but you're going to be evil to the world, not to the party. So we'll have to figure out ways for why would a good and evil person be traveling together. But you can find ways to do that, but it's really, really important that you be evil to the NPCs, you know, not to your teammates, you know, because you know, even like Sith Lords in Star Wars, you know, they have other people around them that they keep alive because they need people to see how evil they are and acknowledge it and live in fear. You know, like, you can't just destroy everything because you're evil, because it's not fun for anyone.
Yeah, and I remember that. That was the very beginning.
Does anybody got anything else to add to his pet peeve?
I feel like I did, but now I forgot it.
Okay. All right, we will go on our last break. When we come back, we'll do the last 3 of the top 5 pet peeves, and then we will go into open discussion where we can talk about anything, but we're going to kind of dogpile that on with the viewer Q&A. So we'll talk about stuff, just whatever we want to that's not scheduled, but then you guys will be able to just blast things in the chat that you think is relevant, or, you know, questions for us about the channel, about us personally, or their characters, stuff like that. Or you guys can just bring up discussion topics for just us to talk about. And then at the very end, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do some HotA point giveaways. So to do that, you'll do exclamation point raffle, but don't do that until until it opens, because it won't get you into then. But we'll see you guys in about 5 minutes.